Have you ever wondered why thousands of liters of fuel are stored inside the wings of these huge passenger planes? At first glance, it may seem a bit strange. Because there is a lot of space inside the main body of the plane, if you store the fuel there, it is supposed to be safer and more secure. So engineers, why did you choose the wing? In fact, in the world of aviation technology, music, no decision is made by guesswork. Behind the design of each part are countless calculations, tests, and the subtle rules of science. And the decision to store fuel inside the wing is just as important. Engineering tricks. Many people think that the reason for this is just to save space, or some might think to maintain balance. But in truth, there are several other important reasons behind it. Music, which not only increases the safety of the aircraft, but also allows it to fly more efficiently in the sky, helps. So let's find out today why almost all the world's large passenger aircraft keep fuel inside the wings. And what is the science behind it? Many people may think that the reason for keeping fuel in the wings of an aircraft is to save space, because the main part of the aircraft is the passenger baggage. And there are various important equipment, so the fuel is kept in the wings. Or one might think that there is some empty space inside the wings, so it is used. These explanations are not completely wrong and not completely correct. If it were just a matter of space, then the tanks could have been placed in the rear of the plane or in another tank. But aircraft engineers see it differently. To them, it doesn't matter where the fuel is placed, rather it matters where it will have the least impact on the plane in flight. Because here, we're talking not just a few liters, but hundreds of liters of fuel. Where that much weight is placed is directly related to the balance, control, and fuel consumption of the aircraft. And here comes the issue of the aircraft's center of gravity. Center. This is very important for an airplane. If the center of gravity is too far forward, more control force will be required to keep the airplane straight. And if it is too far back, the airplane will become unstable and will not turn even with the slightest change, will react more. In both cases, fuel consumption will increase and control will become difficult, and the efficiency of the aircraft will decrease. So engineers determine every major weight part of the aircraft very carefully, and fuel is one of those major weights. But here there is a question, why isn't that a problem if passengers and equipment also have weight? So let's say there is a big difference between passengers and equipment and fuel. Passengers maintain almost the same weight throughout the flight, but the fuel is consumed. That is, the weight and mass distribution of the aircraft are constantly changing during flight. The solution to this problem is to store the fuel in a place where the center of gravity does not change much, even if the fuel is reduced. And that ideal place is the wing, because the lift force is near the wing. Or lift is created and is located near the center of gravity of the aircraft. As a result, although the wing fuel is consumed gradually, there is very little change in the balance of the aircraft. As a result, the aircraft is stable, controllable, and fuel efficient throughout the flight. But the reason for storing fuel in the wing is not just for balance. This wing is a pretty good place. Although the wing looks thin from the outside, it is a complex structure inside. It contains various strong beams, ribs, and other structural parts, which are the wings, maintain strength, and there is enough empty space in the middle of this structure. So why waste space? When there is enough space inside the wing, why create an additional structure to store fuel? On the other hand, the main part of the aircraft, every space is very valuable, because that is where the passenger baggage and important systems are located. If that space is used for fuel, then the passenger or cargo carrying capacity will be reduced. But there is no such problem in the case of wings. Therefore, modern aircraft usually have weight wings. The design is used, that is, instead of installing a separate tank, the inside of the wing is used as a fuel tank. But there is another important point in keeping the oil inside this wing. When you look at the balls acting on the wing, you will see that in flight, lift or lifting force is acting across the entire wing, which pulls the wing upwards, whereas most of the weight of the main structure of the aircraft is located in the middle, which creates a kind of pressure on the bottom. As a result, a lot of pressure is created at the base of the wing. So if there was no fuel inside the wing, that pressure would increase and the wing would have to bend more. But the fuel inside the wing acts as a counterweight. It exerts a force against part of the lift. As a result, the pressure on the wing is reduced. This also reduces wing drag and prevents structural damage in the long run. That is, fuel is not only used to run the engine, it also plays an important role in maintaining the structural strength of the aircraft. For example, one of the world's most popular passenger aircraft, the Boeing 737. This aircraft usually has 2 wing tanks and a central tank. On short and medium haul flights, most of the time only the wing tanks are used. When additional fuel is needed, the central tank is used. However, if there is fuel in the central tank, it's used before, because engineers want to reduce the excess central weight as quickly as possible and return the aircraft to a wing-based fueling configuration. And these aircraft usually have a special fueling port under the wing for refueling. Through there, fuel is first sent to the wing tanks and then to the central tank if necessary. The amount of fuel required is determined in advance based on the weight of the aircraft, the route, and safety considerations. The fuel used in aircraft is not usually petrol or diesel. It is a special type of aviation kerosene which it can remain liquid even at extremely low temperatures and helps the engine run reliably at high altitudes. In addition, modern aircraft fuel systems have multiple pumps, alternative supply systems, and various safety technologies. As a result, even if there is a problem with a part, the entire system can continue to function safely. However, sometimes situations arise when an aircraft has to dump some fuel in the air. This may sound strange because an aircraft needs fuel to stay in the air, so dumping it, why is it necessary? This is because aircraft have 2 important weight limits. One is the maximum takeoff weight and the other is the maximum landing weight. Generally, an aircraft cannot safely land at the same weight as it can take off. For example, a long-haul aircraft, it took off with full fuel, but shortly after takeoff it had to return to the airport due to mechanical problems or an emergency. At that time, there was still a large amount of fuel inside the plane. As a result, its weight was above the safe landing limit. In such a situation, pilots usually have 2 options. Either they have to spend some time in the sky and use up fuel, or if the situation is urgent, they have to dump a certain amount of fuel. This is why some large national carriers have a fuel dump system is installed. Through this system, fuel is discharged through a special nozzle near the wing. However, many people may think that this fuel oil can fall directly to the ground and harm the environment, but in reality, this is not entirely the case. The fuel dumping is usually done from a very high altitude. At that altitude, the fuel released is broken into very small particles by the strong airflow and quickly turns into vapor. As a result, the probability of it reaching the ground in a liquid state is very low. Even then, it is not a common or routine process. This work is done in specific areas and under specific conditions, following strict rules set by the aviation authorities, so that the impact on the environment is minimized as much as possible. And this is where the most interesting aspect of aviation technology comes into play. From the outside, we see a plane flying in the sky, but behind that flight are countless invisible engineering decisions. Keeping fuel inside the wing, distributing it properly, controlling the plane's center of gravity, and reducing stress on the wing are all deeply interrelated. That is, placing fuel inside the wings is not just a space-saving tactic. It also improves the balance of the aircraft, structural stress, creates more space for passengers and cargo, and makes the entire flight safer and more efficient. This is why almost all large passenger aircraft in the world today have wings, used as the main fuel tank. While it may sound strange at first, once you understand the science behind it, it becomes clear that this is one of the smartest decisions in real aviation engineering. Which of these reasons for storing fuel inside the wings of an airplane is the most surprising? Like maintaining balance, reducing pressure on the wings, or creating more space for passengers and cargo? You can write your opinion in our comment box. If you like today's video, you can like it. You can subscribe to the channel. So we are waiting for the next new in an episode. Thank you.